Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. I have a good one for you today. I will be talking to Larry Woodstone from the Wood Enthusiast podcast, comedian and Swiss awareness activist Fran Kissling, as well as comedian Dave Nelson, and Frankie MacDonald will be here to give you the weather for the week. Unfortunately, Dan Severn and Rhoda Young weren't able to be on this episode, but they will be on soon, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. But first, here's a segment from the Wood Enthusiasts.
Fun fact, F-U-X facts. Wouldn't you like to know all things about wood?
Hello, this is Larry Woodstone again, bringing you some more fun facts from the wood enthusiast community. A lot of people don't really understand the difference between hardwood and softwood, but in this fun fact, we're going to talk about the benefits of both. Softwood is a wonderful, wonderful wood, and I personally love softwood, but when it comes to burning, it's more of a good wood to start for maybe a tinder pile to ignite the fire, because it has a little bit more smoke in it, and it burns through a lot faster. So what you're going to want to do is start with some softwood in your campfire, and then go ahead and follow up with some hardwoods, because they're going to last a lot longer, and they're going to take a lot longer to burn out. So my advice to you is to finish off with some hardwood, but always start with a little bit of softwood.
Do you love all things wood? Follow the Wood Enthusiasts at Wood Enthusiasts on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
My next guest hasn't been on the show in a while, but has been sending in segments with tips on how you can become more Swiss. Currently spreading Swiss awareness throughout the United Kingdom, it's Fran Kissling. How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show again.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. What have you been up to since the last time you were on the show?
Well, as you can guess, I have been spreading the word of Switzerland. I have been trying to get people to become more Swiss. You'd be surprised at how many people are not Swiss and would benefit from being Swiss. What? I feel that this is my purpose in life.
Sounds like a good purpose. What are some of the benefits of being Swiss?
One of the benefits of being Swiss is you can live in Switzerland. Switzerland is a nice country if you like mountains and lakes.
I really wanted to have you on Skype and bring you into the podcast meetup so you could give the Swiss quiz to one of the guests or somebody in the audience. Since this is one of 3 shows to make it up to the listeners for that podcast meetup getting canceled, would you mind giving me a Swiss quiz?
No. I really hope that you have learnt a lot about Switzerland from the valuable tips I gave to you.
I have been trying my best. Before we get started, do you mind explaining the quiz to some of the new listeners?
Yes. Basically, I assess people on how Swiss they are. Most people aren't that Swiss, unfortunately. I am hoping that when you give people the Swiss quiz, that you pass on tips on how to become more Swiss.
All right, I am ready to take the Swiss quiz.
Good. Are you Swiss, Jason?
No.
That is not a Swiss answer. For each answer you get right, I will give you a Swiss point. So far you have 0 Swiss points.
Okay.
Second question. Which 3-letter word within the word Switzerland describes something humorous?
I don't know.
The word is wit.
Ah, I should have got that.
Better luck next time. Can you name the year in which the Swiss royal family's palace got bombed?
No.
None of your answers is Swiss so far. That was actually a trick question. We never had a royal family.
Oh.
The next question might be easier. Is a Swiss roll Swiss?
Yes.
That also is not a Swiss answer. It is actually not Swiss.
I am failing miserably.
I'm disappointed. In my home village of Oberhofen, who was the council leader in 2017?
I don't know.
It was Sonia Reichen.
That was on the tip of my tongue. It just didn't sound right in my head.
Final question. What is the nationality of Roger Federer?
Swiss?
Yes, that is a Swiss answer. You get a Swiss point. I have to say, I'm not impressed with how you did. You need to look at the Swiss tips I gave you and read them carefully.
I definitely will do that. But do you have any tips for the listeners on how they can become more Swiss?
Yes, I do. You can meditate and think about Switzerland when you meditate, and you can connect more closely with Switzerland when you do this. Also, you can only buy Swiss products. We have established that Swiss rolls are not Swiss, so don't buy them. Buy Swiss cheese, Swiss chocolates, and Swiss Army knives. And a drink called Rivella is also Swiss, but maybe not available in the US. Marry a Swiss person. If you're married to a Swiss person, it's a lot easier to live in Switzerland. And you will get the benefit of spending a lot of time with someone who knows about Switzerland. Cover your house in Swiss flags and cover your car in Swiss flags. This will advertise Switzerland and maybe start conversations with Swiss people who see the flags on your house. And they will talk to you about Switzerland.
That is a great conversation starter. Fran, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Where can people find you on social media?
Under my own name on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
That sounds great. That is at Fran Kissling, FranKissling. Make sure you check her out. She's got a lot of funny videos of her stand-up too. Make sure you watch those on YouTube. Once again, I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back.
Do you have a Dumbass of the Year nomination, idea for the show, or just want to say hi? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
I'm Rhoda Young. I'm on the scene of this bitch, and you are listening to We Don't Have Cookies.
My next guest was going to travel all the way from Georgia to be at the podcast meetup, to be a guest, and to do some stand-up comedy. He's a longtime contributor to the podcast and a guest from the Comedy A Go-Go podcast. It's Dave Nelson. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. The first thing I want to say is that it really meant a lot to me that you were going to travel so far to be a part of the meetup, and I was really looking forward to hanging out with you and having you there live.
Well, I appreciate the invite. It was just a good excuse to go hang out with my brother and his family because they live over in Dayton, so it's not too far away from where you're at.
Well, speaking of Dayton, you're a professor. On a recent episode, I was talking to another professor who is also a comedian about how there's a school in Dayton that is a school and office supply store. At least that's what I presume. I went by and there was a sign that said school and office supply store. How do you feel about the American commercialization of schools to the point where we're combining them with office supply stores?
It doesn't surprise me. It's the next step to what's going to happen, to which our school overlords will thus then take over and thus be including probably dark web, in influencing some sort of fake news and possibly YouTube channels of some sort.
What was most disturbing to me was when I drove up to the building, it was closed, so I could just look in. All I saw was office supplies, so I'm assuming the school was in the back. Now these kids have to funnel through and go right past the supplies, and I just think they're double dipping. I just don't feel it's right.
That or it's an online school, and it's kind of a bait and switch type situation.
I never thought of that. I think this is one of those things where I'm going to have to call up and do some investigative journalism on my part.
You'll have to put on that, what is that houndstooth, what is that, wolf's tooth hat, whatever that Sherlock Holmes hat. Like deer stalker hat. There we go. A deer stalker hat.
The last time I talked to you, you were taking a break from stand-up. Have you went back yet?
I have not. I'm thinking in the fall is what I'm doing. I just taking a break, living life. We're actually starting to work on some new material, just kind of ramp things up and just take my time with it. It's been kind of nice. I appreciated the advice that the email you sent me saying, if you got to step away, you got to step away and do it. And I've talked to some friends who have stepped away, and it's been nice just to focus on life and not feel like the need to do it. But there's some things I really do miss about it. So that's going to draw me back into it. I don't think I'm ever going to quit. I'm just maybe not going to be at the level I was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, just because so much is going on. Because I started doing this Professors of Wrestling podcast, just covering local wrestling in the South Georgia area with people I work with. And so that has been just really fun and goofy and cool with the embracement of the local wrestling community down here. So that's been taking up some of my time.
What's one of the funniest moments that you've had on stage?
When I was starting out and I was still trying to figure out my voice and probably awkward and gangly, you have those moments to where you just I killed it in that one brief moment, and you just hold on to that for a while until you get to that next moment. And it was at an open mic, and there was some gal heckling me in the crowd, kept saying, and I don't think it was a mean heckle. It used to come after work, so I'd be dressed, sometimes in a suit and tie if I decided to wear that for work, or part of my, what I thought my image was at the time was a sweater vest with a tie and kind of look professorial. And this one gal kept saying, he's like, I like your sweater. I go, thank you. I appreciate that. And, when they heckle you, the only person that can really hear is those that are around them, and they don't know what the conversation is going on. Right. And she kept saying, well, I like your shoes. I go, well, thank you. And she's like, I like your tie. And I said, thank you very much. I wish you had, I think the thumb thing is I wish I would like you better if you had manners. And that kind of it was one of those, I'm like, okay, the light starts switching on that you're kind of getting what you need to do to be a stand-up and things like that. So that would be probably one of the early winning moments that I've had on stage.
What's the latest going on with your podcast, Comedy A Go-Go?
Comedy A Go-Go, as you know, as well as anybody who's had a podcast, if you do a certain format for a while, it gets boring after you reach some sort of point. I did that special episode over the 7 Dirty Words. I sent you kind of advanced listening to what, instead of cracking out week by week stuff, which can be really boring and tedious after a while, after you kind of get the format, I'm doing kind of special episodes where I'm focusing on moments or specific comedians in time. So I just did one on the Lenny Bruce obscenity trials. Mm-hmm. And so these require me to do more research. And right now I'm working on one on kind of Dick Gregory doing stand-up comedy and also being part of the civil rights movement. So I just want to focus on that aspect, because I think sometimes we as comedians forget that these people that were groundbreaking did some really amazing work. Not only were they just really super funny, but they did some really amazing work that we should pay attention to. And I know Dick Gregory has his problems and did some wackadoo stuff, but in the 60s, that dude was just tearing stuff up.
Well, I really like the new format. I suggest everybody go check it out.
And I think that the next episode should be coming out, hopefully, by the end of the month is my goal, or early May.
All right. Sounds great. Everybody go subscribe to that. Dave, I want to thank you for being on today's episode. Where can people find you on social media and listen to your podcast?
They can, if you just look for Comedy A Go-Go, you put that in your favorite search engine, that will pop up. I've embedded it so many times with meta tags in there. It should go up. There's a Facebook page if you still follow Facebook, but I am on Twitter at hey_snowflake, and my Instagram is just a professor, one word.
And I'll also have links to those in the show notes, so make sure you check those out. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
My college days were great. I made a lot of friends. But there was this one guy who I really did depend on. I never would have made it through if I had been on my own. But there to lend a helping hand was my student loan. We went everywhere together. He gave so freely. Tuition, books, pizza, beer, thought he just cared for me. I was up on stage with everyone on graduation day. Now everybody else is gone. But my loan won't go away. Yeah, he's always reminding me of the good old days, and how those days are dead and gone, and now it's time to pay. Working at 3 crappy jobs, living in my parents' home. Just me and my mom and dad, and my student loan. After I graduated, he got really controlling. He sent letters, emails, followed me, and told me that I owed him. I said a little time apart maybe would be best, but all that seemed to do to him was compound his interest. Yeah, he's always reminding me of the good old days, that those days are dead and gone, and now it's time to pay. Working at 3 crappy jobs, living in my parents' home. Just me and my mom and dad, and my student loan. How I wish I'd never met him. My life would be better, man, if I'd learned to put up drywall or had bought a hot dog stand. At least I know that when I die, I shall not go alone. My grave will say, here lies some guy and his student loan. Yeah, he's always reminding me of the good old days, that those days are dead and gone, and now it's time to pay. Working at 3 crappy jobs, living in my parents' home. Just me and my mom and dad, and my student loan.
My last guest was going to drive to the meetup from Ontario, Canada. He's always one of my favorite people to have on the show. He's 1/3 of the hosts of the Wood Enthusiast podcast. He is 3/3 of himself. It's Larry Woodstone. How you doing?
Oh, I'm just so honest. Honestly, we say the same thing every time, but every time it's the same. We're just so blessed. I consider this, one of the truest blessings to be on the show with you guys. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting for me specifically. So,
well, I'm very happy to have you here. The last time we talked, the fish that I talked to you about hating hasn't eaten in almost a week now. I'm kind of wondering if he listened to the episode that we did and maybe he's on a hunger strike. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a good chance. I mean, the minute somebody hears that they're going to get some cedar, and if they're denied, there's a natural reaction. And I've said this to Nancy, that's Gary's wife. I've said it for years that, you tell Gary, that he's going to get a plank of cedar on Tuesday. Come Wednesday, if he hasn't gotten it, he's not going to eat. He's not going to eat anything. He's just going to wait for his cedar. And that's kind of, that's an old wood enthusiast wives' tale. If you don't get your cedar on Tuesday, don't expect me to eat on Thursday, is the old saying. So that's kind of what we've always said,
How's Gary doing?
Oh, Gary, as you know, obviously we're coming into wood season, and wood season generally runs from April until about October. And wood season for us is clearly, a very exciting time. And Gary, he obviously gets really horny during these years and during these seasons and these months, but, he's out in the bush and he's in frolic mode. Gary's a really withheld, kind of a genteel type character, but when you get him out in the bush with the wood and during wood season, obviously it's wood season, that he's just, excited. He's excited beyond belief. And he's hard to reach because he's out in the bush.
I'm glad you brought up wood season. It is getting that time of year when trees are starting to bloom, and I have a ton of them in the yard. And one thing I started last year that I really didn't follow through on very well was I would always tweet you guys, and I would try to send a picture of one of the trees in my yard. This year, I think I'm going to do that again, except for I'm going to stick with it a little more. I'm very bad at social media.
Did you catch your little pun there? You said you're going to stick with it. And that's kind of a fun little pun we use in the community. We always say things like, oh, I'm just twigging out, or I'm going to stick with it. And those are just little things. And you'll find yourself, Jason, the more that you communicate, the more that you kind of open yourself up to the community, that you'll start to kind of have this, this vocabulary that's absolutely smothered in these kind of terms. And this isn't something you normally would have said, stick with it. That's not a term you would use, but the more you've been part of this community, and I think it's kind of really bred out to you, and that's exciting for us.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you picked up on it. A lot of people, they think I have a dry or kind of a wooden sense of humor, so I think you appreciate that, though.
Well, Glenn would probably want you to have a moist sense of humor because he's an idiot and he likes everything moist, but dry dry sense of humor is probably the best kind. You've got that fella out there in the UK, and there's nothing over there like they like more than a dry sense of humor, because they don't get anything. They like to laugh at the driest thing in the world. So, and you give me a dry piece of lumber, Jason, I'm just going to be the happiest bug in the tree. So,
and shout out to Choo Choo Stew. He made a very good video on, I think you can watch it on Twitter, where he was rubbing fresh over in the UK.
Oh, and you know what? And what I thought, and I called Glenn right away, and I said, doesn't that guy look sexy? And I don't know what it was, because I'm not, everybody has their own proclivities. Let me make that really clear. And a proclivity of mine is, not same-sex attraction. And that's not something I'm used to. But when I saw him rubbing fresh, I thought, there's something very handsome about that man that I haven't seen before. And I saw it in a new light.
And just in case we have some new listeners, do you mind explaining to them what rub fresh is?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of, it's become kind of very big throughout the globe, really, the world. And it's something that me and Gary have done for years and 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 years. And that we've, as a child, we would keep small planks of wood in our pocket. And we would, we'd walk around with maybe a 40 grit piece of sandpaper, which isn't hard to, it's not easy to find, but it's not hard to find. You got to go to a specialty store and you get a really nice grit, a nice little piece of sandpaper. When you're stressed and when you're upset, or when, if you just want to break, a break from life, you just pull it out. You just pull it out and you give it a hard rub on the wood. And all of a sudden, you just take I always like to make this sound. You take a big haul of the wood after you've taken a nice little, little standing, and it just pulls you into a time and a place that believe me, Jason, I can't even express in words. There's no point. That's why I rub fresh, because, it can't be expressed in words.
When is the next episode of your podcast going to be out, and what can people expect to hear when they listen?
We're nervous and we're excited. We're nervous because season 2 came, and our production, our producers and our crew is like, we've got to back this up and get this thing set up right, because people are coming, they're coming in droves, like zombies, they're just coming out of the woodwork. That's kind of an expression we use. So we said, we want to do this right. We want to write these things down. And sometimes, Glenn kind of in the middle of a conversation, he'll spew out some sort of garbage and we have to edit it, and it's a lot of work. So we decided, we got to prep these things. So we've done some interviews already, and we're kind of doing things the right way. But we're excited on this Wednesday. We're going to release a really, really exciting episode, because we've got some new players and we've got some really exciting, I should tell you this, Mr. Marshall, this is exciting. We've got some new sponsors, and nice. We have this one sponsor called, I shouldn't even say this on live on the air, but I'm going to, it's the little sliver saver. And I'll tell you, when you see it, you're going to be wanting to order one of those online. So there's some special stuff and products coming from the Wood Enthusiast, things that we didn't expect. Well,
that sounds great. And you said that'll be out this Wednesday, right?
This Wednesday, we're chomping at the bit here, chomping at the bit.
I'll make sure I have a link to your podcast in the show notes. And where can people find you on social media?
Oh, we've tried to reach out as far as we can. The one I don't like, I'm not a fan of Instagram. I think that's stupid. I don't like that one, but all the kids like that nonsense, and it's stupid because you don't really get to talk. You just get to post your crap, and everybody has to look at everybody's crap, and I think that's dumb. You can't even post videos on there unless it's a minute or something. That's stupid. But if you want to, we're on there, but it's just a waste of time. Steph goes on there and does it, but it's stupid. But we're on Facebook, and we love to communicate. But I think we like to talk the most on Twitter. We like to have, we tweet because of the reference to trees and nature, and I think that's really special to us. So if you just go to @Wood Enthusiasts, you can also find us on YouTube if you just search Wood Enthusiasts. And if you're on Facebook @Wood Enthusiasts, we're all over. We're really all over the place, just because, like, if you walk out in your front yard, you're going to see a tree. The idea is you walk into your social media platform and you're going to see a Wood Enthusiast.
Well, Larry, it's great to talk to you as always. I want to thank you for being on the show. Is there anything else you want to say before you go?
No, we're just so excited. We're just so excited about some of the things. And I really want people to know that we thought about coming up to this event, this event that you're hosting. And I had the cars packed, and I had actually, Jason, I didn't want to tell you this, but I was going to bring you a whole box full of mixed woods. And I had some Purple Heart and some, some hard cherry. And I had some really exciting exotic woods that we were going to bring you. And unfortunately, we heard you had to cancel, and that was deeply disappointing, and obviously not for Gary. Gary was upset I was making him because it's wood season. He doesn't like to leave Ontario when it's wood season. In the winter, sometimes people call it unterrible, because it's not great because it's so cold.
Yeah.
But come April, it's something else here, and we're nipping at the bud to get out there and look at all the buds. So we were excited to go, and I'm obviously ripped apart that it was canceled, and and it's sad.
it's sad, and you've had to make the decisions you made, and there, we'll hold it against you for a little bit, and I'm sure you understand. You have to understand.
I completely understand. And one more time, I do apologize to everybody. I was really looking forward to it, and I would have loved to have met you in person, along with Gary and whoever else you might have brought along with you. I think it would have been a good time.
Oh, it would have been a delight.
Well, I want to thank you one more time for being on the show. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
This is Dan the Beast Severn, the only Triple Crown champion in the UFC's no-holds-barred history. You're listening to Jason Marshall's We Don't Have Cookies. Cookies! I want some cookies! You better listen, otherwise I know where you live.
Dan Severn wasn't on the podcast today because we just weren't able to line things up. He's a really busy guy, but he will be on again soon. The same thing goes for Rhoda. I talked to her. She wants to be on again, but she just ran out of time on the day that I was hoping that we could record. She did say to tell everybody hello, and she misses being on the show. Hopefully she'll be here next month. Next week, I will be having a birthday episode for Frankie MacDonald. And speaking of Frankie,
we don't have cookies. Be prepared.
Frankie, what will the weather be like starting on Monday, April 15th?
It's going to be a lot of rain in New York City and Boston, and especially for the Boston Marathon. It's going to rain a lot of rain. I recommend people to wear your rain gear to watch the Boston Marathon and have your umbrellas ready and things like that. People from all over the world coming from Boston Marathon, from all different countries like Ethiopia and Nigeria and all these countries and all over the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and all these countries, and Russia and Canada, and Mexico, Guatemala, and Brazil, and Venezuela, and all these countries going to Boston Marathon. As for my YouTube channel, a guy dancing being chased by gorillas video has 810,000 views, and this Monday past it was 600,000 views. It just went up to 810,000 views, and they're getting a lot of views on the guy dancing being chased by gorilla video on my YouTube channel.
Wow, congratulations on that. I will have a link to that in the show notes to make sure everybody knows where to go so they can subscribe. Next week, my
YouTube channel is Dogs and Wolves.
Next week, I'd like to have you on a little longer so I can put out something for an episode for your birthday.
Yes. And my action figures is FrankieActionFigure.com. People can order Frankie action figures on Amazon and FrankieActionFigure.com. And my action figures has moving parts such as head, legs, feet, body, and elbows and arms and things like that. And my talking about was designed by National Bobbleheads Hall of Fame. And my book is Be Prepared, a Frankie Guide to Life, Letter, and Everything, written by Sarah Soller.
All right, Frankie, thanks for being on the show today. I'm looking forward to talking to you again next week.
Best of luck to you. I'm Frankie MacDonald.
The co-author of Frankie's book will be on that episode, as well as a possible surprise guest. You don't want to miss that episode. Also coming up, another unexplainable incident has happened in my house. I will be talking about it with comedian and paranormal investigator Karen Rontowski at the end of the month. That's going to be another good episode. Now that I've run down the rest of the episodes for the month, let's get into the strange days for the week. Tuesday, April 16th is Eggs Benedict Day and Wear Pajamas to Work Day. Those seem like they would go pretty well with each other. Wednesday is Haiku Poetry Day. Is there any other kind of haiku besides poetry? Is there a Haiku Astronomy Day? I guess we're going to find out someday during this segment of the show. Stay tuned. Thursday is Columnist Day, so send an email to your favorite columnist and thank them on Thursday. And finally, Saturday is Lookalike Day. That's it for this episode. I hope you had a good time. If you did, please share it with your friends and help me spread the word. I'm horrible at social media and self-promotion, so whatever you can do is greatly appreciated. I hope you all have a great week. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.
I have to say, I'm not impressed with how you did.